cup of coffee, then I'll go. Thought that
Well, we'll start right off with a problem with the video. So let's see what we can do here. There we go. Well, we almost got it flawless. I had a lot going on in the background. You could probably hear some of it. And there's an echo. I was loaned this because this microphone, being separate, it wouldn't have echoes around here, and I could dial it in. I thought I had it set, but it was creating issues. I didn't have it set, so I had to disconnect it and change settings while we're getting started here. Seems like there's two mics. Okay. Maybe there is. How is that? Is that any better?
Or that? We doing better with that? Found out today there's an 8-second delay from YouTube. Yup is in. Oh, okay, good. All right, so busy today. My cough. Usually I have it drunk by the time I got to this. No more echo. Perfect. All right. Well, maybe we'll get this dialed in one of these days. And I can even see the chat on the screen today. My God. It'd be amazing if things actually worked out. Okay, got my little notes here. Yeah, lots of notes. That's when my eyesight's going bad. Okay, anyway, welcome to the channel. This is Grand Colombia, and this segment on Sundays is called Coffee Time. I got the right brand. Friend went out and she came back with a different brand, and you know, you don't get any bad coffee here. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the contribution. You don't get any bad coffee here, but this is exceptional coffee, and so all things are relative. You know, when you're used to having this exceptional coffee, and you get something that's only spectacular, you know, it's a step down. Anyway, love this. So, purpose of this channel is to talk about all things me and my adventures, and yeah, you know, I know you all saw that screenshot, that picture on the thumbnail in prison. It's because the truth is I'm kind of feeling that way. You know, it's not that I'm not down and depressed, but many people here are beginning to feel the cabin fever. And it's not that I can't go out. I can go out, but I'll see if I can try to explain this. First of all, the lockdown is supposed to be over, but they extended it till May. And part of the problem is they're playing this lockdown here politically. And people's lives are the pawns here. You've got this left group in the politics that want this lockdown to, I don't know, they won't give any kind of, it's like perpetual. They want it to be perpetual. You know, they're talking about maybe a year. You know, it's like, I guess there'll be no viruses of any kind on the planet before they think we should open up. And then you have the president and his people, which tend to be more middle and conservative. It's a mixture. They do coalitions here, and they think, you know, we should start opening some things up now. And they kind of mirror somewhat what's going on in the United States. But what's really farcical here is the it's been an almost non-existent thing here in Colombia. If you look at the stats, which, I'm beginning to realize maybe 2 weeks ago, I started to realize that these stats everywhere are just really kind of pointless and meaningless. But the one you can go by is, well, you can't even go by deaths because, who knows what they're calling a corona. But even deaths here are so few and far between. There's been, a couple people that have died that they've attributed to to this thing. So I mean, you look around and it's like, come on, but they've extended it to May. I guess that's like a political compromise, and it's kind of pathetic. But for me, I'm becoming tired. I'm becoming lazy. I can feel it. I mean, it used to be if I didn't get up and get out walking, with an exception of a 2-month period where I actually got depressed, and that was last year, and it was for some particular reasons. I'm not a depressive personality, but in general, if I don't get up and get out walking around and doing things, and even if it's just to go down to the park and have a coffee and watch people go by, I start to get real antsy, and now I'm finding myself kind of getting comfortable in my own prison. I just don't feel like getting up and getting out. It's like I had my normal, got to get up and get out, and then it got a little more pronounced. It's like, oh man, I really got to get out. And now it's like it's fallen back to where I just don't even feel like it, which I'm not happy. It's like a rut. And the thing is, I feel like I'm not living anymore, and that I'm losing this finite number of days that I've got left. I know that sounds morbid, and it's like I don't feel morbid, so it's hard to explain this, but you all know that, I had a life-threatening illness, and I was stuck in bed for a couple years, and I had this miraculous cure. Nobody can even explain why it went away, but that, like every time somebody goes through something like that, you start to appreciate whatever time you have left. When you're told that you're going to die and you've got months to live, and and then you get a reprieve from that, you just you really appreciate getting out and doing things. And those that have followed me for the last 4 years on videos, when I was living in Ecuador, I mean, I traveled all over the place in Ecuador, all these little towns and villages, and and I come here to Colombia, and I've got tons of videos of different places around here, and I've got ambitions to go out and cover even more. And it's kind of a shame that I spent a lot of time in the last few years south of here in different cities and towns south of Cali, and I didn't take any video because the places bore me. The place like Popayan, people are interested in it, but it bores me. When I do these videos, it's like what interests me. So it's a shame, though. I was there a bunch of times, and I just didn't really do any video. So I contemplate those things, but I feel like I'm missing out on whatever days I've got left. Whether it's a billion days or 5 days, I just feel like I'm just really missing out on those. So that's where my state of mind is here. Like I say, don't think I'm getting depressed. I'm not, but I'm getting tired of it. I'm just getting tired of it. And here's the thing: it's like, I guess the best way to say it is I'm just losing patience with it, because I want to get back to getting out and walking around and feeling like every day I'm alive and I'm discovering things. It's not that I can't go out, because I can. People here, we can go out, but the problem is there's no place to go. I mean, I can't walk down to Parque Fundadora, sit down at the coffee shop, order up a mochaccino, and watch people go by, because they're closed. I can't go to Parque de la Vida and stroll around in it. It's closed. It's locked up. There's there's nothing to go out for. There's nothing out there. I can't do any. I can't get on a bus and travel to another town. So it's yeah, stuck in a rut. But I got the right coffee. Now in the last video, and I'm gonna say we're gonna go to questions early today. It'll be coming up soon. Please remember to put 4 question marks before you ask the question, because sometimes I just can't go and read all the chat. It'll take forever, and my eyesight is bad on this program. But if I see the 4 question marks, I can go right to that, and then I can, it just keeps everybody from kind of sitting and waiting while I go through that stuff. So, thank you. It's very generous. I appreciate that. And the terms of encouragement. I'm not, I don't want you to think I'm down and out, because I'm not. I'm sick and tired of it. It's kind of like if you go into a store and you're getting bad service, you don't sit there and beat yourself up over it. You're just kind of really aggravated at what somebody's handing you. And it's starting to feel that way here. When I see them playing politics with this crap, and when I see that there's hardly any effect, particularly where I am, there's hardly any effect. Like I said, here in Condillo, in our state, there's been 2 deaths. I mean, it's kind of hard to, why can't I go have a cup of coffee? Who is it to tell me that? And people here have been, like in the U.S., they've been very obedient, they've been compliant, they've given the benefit of the doubt. But this country in Colombia has an individuality that's very reminiscent of the United States. And people I know here are getting fed up. And I think if this went on much more, my guess is that they've given, this May 11th, this extension, that if there's one beyond that, you're going to see what you're seeing in the U.S. You're going to see protests in the street. I think people have had enough, because they're not seeing this issue here like it was portrayed. Now, I know the virus is real. I mean, I've read enough about this, and you probably have too, to know that if you've got this, this COPD, I've been told, but when you have a lung issue, this virus can be a death sentence. And so I'm going to avoid it, just like I avoid things that cause me pneumonia, just like I left Cuenca, even though I had a nice life going there. Not all that, I'm not, I gotta be careful what I say. I've had enough of Ecuador. Ecuador's, for other people. It's just not for me. So I wanted to do something anyway, but I really wanted to go 6 months, because there are things in Ecuador that I really enjoyed. I had created this bubble of people and activities, and like I just get a message that I'm still the vice president of this foundation, San Martin Foundation in Cuenca, that helps street kids. And I can't really do anything from here. And I just get an email, they're having an officers meeting, which is considered an essential service, but I can't get there. I can't get in a bus and go there or fly there because of what's going on. So I can't even show up for this meeting that I'm one of the 4 main officers of this foundation. So anyway, I'm rambling on. Didn't mean to ramble. So I don't know. We'll tough it out the next 2 weeks, and we'll see where it lands. I just I've gained weight. I went almost 5 years. We have 5 years. I went 5 years either staying steady or losing weight, and I've actually gained weight during this, because I mean, what do you got to do? it's like I said, I'm taking this virus seriously because it may only be targeting a percent of the population, but unfortunately, I'm in that percent. So, I locked myself away, and if the government hadn't said anything, I would have done that anyway. I would have waited. But by now, seeing what's been going on, personally, I would have stopped waiting by now. Um, so, anyway, have you heard anyone getting. I do not know a person who's gotten it, but you have to understand that here in Candio and in Armenia, there are so few cases. I don't even know the numbers. I said what they were last week, and it hasn't changed a lot. It's it's almost laughable. You probably had more people with stubbed toes than you had with this. Now in Ecuador, I can appreciate what's going on. I mean, the bodies in the street. Now those bodies aren't specifically from Corona. I have a friend who I've known for we're going on 2 decades, and she lived in Cuenca when I went there, and we caught up with each other, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And where before we just touch base every handful of months. Well, she moved back to Guayaquil, which is where she was originally from, and she sent me a message, said she's actually afraid because of what's going on there. And people are so afraid of the coronavirus that if something happens, like if a man, this actually happened, a man fell over, old man just kind of fell over waiting in a line. And everybody just kind of backed away and left him alone. That's kind of the nature of Ecuador. It's one of the things I don't like about Ecuador. In the U.S. that happened, you'd have a bunch of people run up to help. Here in Colombia, people would run up to help. In Ecuador, they all back away. And so you had people there dying, and everybody, instead of doing something about it, would just walk away. So you got bodies in the street there, but it's also the stats there. I mean, you had the hospitals fill up. It was kind of like Italy. Italy, it was as bad as what people were saying. And that's why other countries, like here in Colombia or in the United States, they looked at those and said, oh my God, we don't want to have that, so we're going to do all of this stuff so we don't ever get it. And it probably worked. It's just, at what point? When you have lunatics saying you can't buy seeds, or you can go to Walmart and you can buy XYZ, but you can't go to a local store and buy XYZ. I mean, it's just, it's just ludicrous. It's draconian. And if you're the land of the free and home of the brave, you don't really want to tolerate that kind of crap. And I live in the land of the free and the home of the brave here. And yeah, people are kind of fed up. Nobody knows anybody who's been sick or has gotten sick. Okay, so we'll go to the questions. And okay, there is a disease in the jungle there called something or other. Have you heard about anyone getting it as a prevalent? Never heard of it. I can get off and do some research on it, but no, it's certainly not prevalent. And I don't live in the jungle anyway. I live in the Andes. Uh, it's like I don't even get mosquitoes here, or rarely. I see a few, more than in Cuenca. We're at what, 5,000 feet, something like that. So it's not like sky high. It's perfect for my lungs. But we don't have a whole lot of bugs. We don't. I think there's one type of poisonous snake around here that nobody ever sees. What airport do you fly into Colombia from the USA? Well, I don't. But if I were going to go to Armenia, I would go to the Fort Lauderdale and fly Spirit Airlines. It comes directly here to Armenia. Now that flight only goes a couple times a year, and I believe, what's the airline? I think it's United. I'm not sure. I shouldn't say. But there's another airline that will be coming into Armenia. Now in Pereira, which is not far from here, that airport has daily flights from a number of places. Manizales has an airport, but it's only internal to Colombia. And then you can always fly into Bogota and come here, but there's quite a bit of distance. So you're going to have to go to Bogota and then fly again, or take a bus. By bus, you're probably talking 7-8 hours. Um, it's quite a ways away. So what would I do? I'd probably take the flight from Fort Lauderdale to Armenia directly. You know, you want to get home as quick as possible, and there's taxis there waiting, and you just give them an address, and they'll take you where you want to go. Where in Pereira, you're gonna have to go to the other side of town to the bus terminal. You don't really want to take a taxi and drop $100 bill to go 15 miles. I mean, that's a whole nother story. What? How can it be? Taxis aren't that expensive. Well, I can explain that sometime, but not now. The only international flight to Armenia is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from Spirit. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. There will be some, maybe. This could have all changed it, but there's another airline that's going to come into Armenia, and I don't remember the name. But this could very well have taken off the books. I don't know. Do I have to be a resident to buy and insure a car? I don't know if you have to be a resident, but yeah, probably. You can't do much here without a cedula. I don't know. But why would you buy and insure a car here if you're not a resident? You know, I'm not sure if that makes sense. But I will be doing, well, I'll give you an update on the car. I'm still looking. This lockdown is definitely affecting it. People don't really want to, come by if you're not going to buy the car, and I'm not going to buy the car unless, it's suitable, and I'm not going to make those kind of commitments. Plus, they don't feel comfortable. You can only drive in Condillo Monday through Friday, unless it's for essential business. You can only drive on your 1 day a week, and so they don't want to. It's just complicated. I will do an entire video on buying a car, the process of it, getting your driver's license, which I have yet to do, and this has derailed that also, and God knows when they're going to open that back up. It takes 2 weeks, and you're pretty much guaranteed to pass. Yes, yeah, Mr. Chauffeur. But I'll do the video on getting your license, registering the car, the insurance. The insurance couldn't be easier. I'm telling you, you can buy it online in a minute. And having your car inspected, they call that the techno, and it's emissions and safety inspection. Yes, they have that here, and it's yes, I did promise to sneak you in. I will. So anyway, do we have more questions? Do I have to be a resident? I don't know. People are allowed to fly in there already. No, they are not. There are no people flying in here right now. There's been, I guess you could say, mercy flights. There have been flights going to the United States to take people out, but they're scheduled ahead of time, and it's done by the embassy. So every handful of days there'll be a flight out, and you can get yourself registered on it, and it'll fly you back to the U.S. But there's no commercial traffic, or there's no tourists. It's been shut down. I've got a couple things on order. I've got my coffee time mug that I ordered that's been done, that's sitting in the United States, because those things aren't being allowed into Colombia. See, none of those things make sense. You have internal deliveries happening in Colombia, so how, I don't know. A lot of things don't make sense. But no, you can't come in. Wondering, same as Craig. Did you get a stimulus check, or do you qualify? Well, I guess everybody qualifies for one. And supposedly I've got one coming, which will be, oh my God, it's going to be a huge help. I'll be stimulating the economy here Because I have a couple necessities that I need to do that I haven't been able to do. But I haven't seen any hiding their hair of it, and maybe it'll come, maybe it won't come. I don't know. I try not to think about it because you don't want to start thinking in your mind where, oh my God, I could take care of this, I could take care of that, like I just did, and then find out it's not there, and you go, oh crap, So I actually try not to think about it. My wife and I, German Shepherd, working line, flying to Colombia by September. Think international travel will be open. Any news of mandated testing of people? No, I have no idea. I would assume so because people are, like I said, people aren't going to put up with this for so long, just like in the U.S. and they're going to demand that things open up. And like I said, my guess is, and it's strictly a guess, is that they won't, unless something major happens, like a ton of people start dying, they're not going to tolerate another extension, I don't believe. And so I think they're going to do like a step opening. All right, we'll start opening these, but these not yet, or you have to do mask and still keep your space, but you can be open. You can only have so much, kind of like what they're doing with the supermarkets. You're probably going to start seeing that, and maybe everything will open up by June. I don't know. Nobody really knows. We would have a better sense of it if politics hadn't gotten involved. When it was just making decisions based on what's occurring as far as are you going to get sick, you could kind of figure that out. But now that politics are in, all bets are off. I mean, everybody could be perfectly healthy and we could still be under a lockdown. So I don't know. Yeah, I should start my own Chiva. That's a party bus. Yeah, there you go. Looking to buy land in Armenia or Ibagué. Okay. I would live here a while first. Something happened there. Even if you're insured and not at fault, I don't know what that was about. SOAT is only good to a limit. It's no fault. Right. The SOAT, you've got, just like in the United States, you've got your basic liability insurance, and every car here is required to have that liability insurance, and it's got limits on it. Of course, you can buy more than the basic, but that's what you can buy in a matter of a minute. All you do is you put the license plate number of the car and your cedula number, and you buy it. I actually can find the quote for the insurance by putting the license number in. The license plate number stays with the car. So when I look at these cars, I see the picture, I see the plate, I can enter it in, it tells me what the insurance is going to be. Most basic cars, like size here, basic cars, run about 400,000 pesos for a year. And you can buy it online like that, and you're good to go. But you can also, like I said, you can get further amounts. You buy your basic, and then the insurance company you go through, you can then, okay, I want to double that or whatever that is. And you can also buy collision insurance, the equivalent of a comprehensive. So what you're used to in the U.S. is similar to here. You can duplicate, although it's different, but there's similarities. And why cuss out Colombia for having issues with their websites, like Movistar. I had such a problem getting my internet. Yeah, see, I got my internet back. And I'm going to tell that story when I talk about Rappi. So, there's issues with a number of websites that just don't perform right, just don't work right. But they've really got it down. If you want to check the record of a car, it's called Runt, runt.com.co. You can look it up, and you put in some very basic information, and everything about the car will come up. The insurance, you just put in the plate number, and you can just buy that insurance just like that. So it's very cool. Any news on after country opens back up, will it be accepting citizenship applications and buying? No, I don't know. Um, all bets are off right now. I assume that when the country opens back up, all the existing laws will remain in place. And you can see what those existing laws are by going to the Colombian website. And you can take a look at things like citizenship. Now, if you can't read Spanish, just use the um, Chrome. Use the Chrome browser, and you can have translations done automatically on the page. When you open the page up, it translates automatically for you in English. And just read what's available. That's going to be your most current information. Don't get it from me. Don't get it from Facebook. God, don't get it from Facebook. I have people constantly asking me questions. I just got another one about taxes, and I've explained about taxes, but it keeps coming up because people keep reading crap on Facebook. And I don't know why, but people just blatantly lie, or out of pure ignorance, and they make these claims about what's here and what the laws are, and they really don't know what they're talking about, or they're intentionally misleading people. I don't know what the deal is, but don't get any kind of legal information from anywhere except sources. So if you want to know about what you're asking me, go right to the government webpage and look and see, and that'll be the latest. Um, okay, see a lot of words, but I'm not seeing any question marks. I don't really want to sit and read it all. There we go. A while back, I asked about transferring all my money to Colombia. I recommend keeping a U.S. bank. One reason you gave was for the security. Are Colombian banks not secure? No, that's not. It's not the point. You got banks here that have been in existence as long as banks have operated. It's not my point. In the United States, you have a structure of laws on banks that work, that are there, and they're not going to change. And in a foreign country, of any country, you don't know how that goes. Also, foreign economies are not as solid as the United States. I mean, you just have to face it. The United States, has twice the money of the rest of the world as far as in their economy. And a country, well, like in Ecuador, I had issues there with the bank. And, well, one thing is one of the, I had two banks and a savings, what do you call it? Credit union. I had two banks and a credit union. And there's reasons why and all that, and I won't get into that now. But that was my experience in Ecuador. And I had this one bank that started charging me fees on something, and they were getting higher and higher. And it was something I didn't have anything to do with. And I had a heck of a time getting them stopped. So what I did was I pulled all the money out, so there was nothing for them to take from me anymore. But they kept charging these fees, and if what happens there is if you have a bill, be it internet bill or something in the bank or whatever, you need to pay it and then go to court to resolve it. Where in the U.S. you could just not pay it and work it out and resolve it. Well, you can't do that in Ecuador. You can get yourself in real trouble. So things are different, and you didn't grow up here in Ecuador or here in Colombia, so you don't necessarily know all the things that you would have if you were born here and you spent your life in this economy. So you have those pitfalls. Plus, you have economies that are not as strong as the U.S., and so at some point, a law can change where it wouldn't in the U.S. because they got it kind of figured out, but it might in a country like this. I'm just saying, why do that? Why expose yourself to that? Why expose yourself to unnecessary taxes, which you could be opening that door up to? Why expose yourself to, some kind of financial loss that potentially could happen? Now, I know there's people here that have banks here and transferred all their money and they're doing fine, but having been burned and then finding other people that have, I look at that and go, why? Why do that? So I went back to a bank in the United States, and ever since then I've had zero problems because I can count on, I can rely on it. So yeah, the banks in Ecuador and in Colombia, you have to fill out that form for the United States, and it goes to the IRS in the United States. So all your finances here are going to be seen there. There's, I just don't see any advantage unless you're going to open a business here. But then if you open a business here, there's other complications with that. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that you really need to know the country that you're going to be in more intimately, or hire somebody like an actual accountant to keep you away from the potholes on your way. Where in the US, you know the system so well, you can pretty much navigate it, and there's safety. Even if you step in a little pothole, you're going to be okay, and you just don't know in another country. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see if we have any more questions. It seems I had something else I want to talk about, but no, I think I hit all the topics I wanted to. My mom thought was the exchange rate for the dollar is almost 4 times exchange rate. I'm not sure what that. You mean the exchange rate for the dollars to the pesos is 4 times what it was? No, but it is almost double what it was 2 years ago. It's the highest it's ever been. They keep breaking records. Here in Colombia, doesn't really have a whole lot of impact. As a matter of fact, it can be helpful because it makes the cost of exports cheaper, which means more exports, which is good for the economy. Exchange rates it's a double-edged sword, but it's absolutely great for me. It's absolutely great for me. I couldn't be getting this car. I couldn't have saved enough to buy a car, albeit low-end, cheap, old car, but I couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the exchange rate. So every time I get money and the exchange rate is somewhere around 4,000, just 2 years ago it was around 2,800. So so that's like a windfall profit for me, and that's what allowed me to put some money aside, because prior to the exchange rate getting to that point, I couldn't save any money. It's like, I just don't have the income that I once had, and it was okay. Yeah, I had a period of time, but I got past that and everything's okay. Well, now with this exchange rate, I find that I've actually got a little extra that I put aside saving for the car. And you guys' contribution have helped actually keep the channel together in things like, that camera, for example. So a number of things directly related to this channel that came from you guys, because it just got to a point where I couldn't afford to sustain the channel anymore, and so at that point I was just going to rely on contributions that come from the channel. And you saw for a while that I was pushing kind of hard because I had equipment issues, and if I didn't get it taken care of, there wouldn't be any more channel. And so you saw me kind of pushing it, bringing it up, reminding. But right now I've got the camera set up pretty much okay. I still need to do something about the sound. I may have an answer to that in the next month or two. The sound isn't as good as it should be, but but everything's workable now. So, exchange rate has been great for me. Boy, well, that the inner talk is good. It's like it's nice to have this little community where you guys are all talking to each other, but I can't actually follow it, so I don't know if there's anything I should be commenting on. But I do see those 4 question marks. Oh, it's a little cold. Now, I wanted to, I've got that merchandise now with some pretty cool designs beyond just Grand Colombia stuff. And I wanted to do this because I had a few people ask me, but I haven't figured out how to do this. I just wrote this with a permanent marker on this cup, which isn't permanent. After a month, it's kind of washes away, and I have to redo it. I've redone this probably a dozen times, and it's like coffee time. Whoop, coffee time, and then it says Cuenca with a line through it, and Giron with a line through it, and then Cuenca with a line through it, and then Manizales with a line through it, and then Armenia, because those are the places that I've lived in since I've started doing this channel. Yeah, I suppose it would be kind of cool, I guess, but I haven't figured out how to do that. But I do have other. I love the T-shirt I bought on your merch site. Awesome. Yeah, I got a T-shirt with the Coffee Time logo, the Art Deco one, and I got a mug, and I got a baseball cap, and I haven't gotten any of those. They're long overdue. There's one order is sitting somewhere on the West Coast. I forget where. The other one's sitting on the East Coast somewhere, and on Newark, and they've been there for since the lockdown began. So they didn't get out in time, and here we go. Also, the baseball cap, some backpacks, a number of things on my channel will show up out of stock. It's because they were non-essential, and so there were a lot of things. Well, the factory was actually shut down. 2 factories in the United States, Texas and Pennsylvania, I think. They were actually shut down for a little while, and they allowed them to open back up, but they can only operate on what they have in stock, and some things they can get, but I guess a lot of things were going to hospital gowns and whatever, and so fabrics and things have been an issue. And so there's some items that you can't get a baseball cap like I ordered, and it's done and sitting somewhere. I want a backpack. Those backpacks are awesome. I would love to have one, but a little pricey for me. Is I get I don't get a discount, but I can get it at cost. But I'm on a different budget. These are U.S. prices, and it's like it comes dear to me. But I figured I've got to at least have a cup and a shirt and a cap, for the live channel. It kind of only makes sense, right? So another downside about importing a lot of money into a foreign country is that it's very difficult and impossible to repatriate the money even if you want to leave. That's a good point. That's actually a very good point. In Ecuador, when I went there was no problems, and then they passed the law out of the blue that you could only take, what was it, $1,800, I think, out of the country. You couldn't take more than that. So if you wanted to go on a trip to Europe and you wanted to take $3,000 in cash, you couldn't do that. And then there was a penalty on your own money. And now I understand. I read somewhere that they've lifted that restriction, but I won't swear to it. But these things, they just come and go. They just come out of the blue. More so in Ecuador, it's much more stable here. But the thing is, you just don't know. And why? Why would you have the money in a bank here versus in the United States? What advantage do you have? If I've got I don't have this, but suppose I got $10,000 sitting in the bank in the United States, and I need $5,000 to go buy a car. I don't even need to do a wire transfer. I can do one of these services like World Remit for a couple dollars. I can have it sent to Bank of Colombia, for example, walk in with my cedula, and they'll just give me the cash and I walk out the door. So it's almost quicker than if you withdrew it from that bank. It's like, because they don't have to worry about losing anything. Where if it's through that bank, you're gonna have to jump through a few hoops before they cough up that cash. So, yeah, I just don't see any advantage to it. Hey, everybody, support on Patreon, just $10 a month, or 5, or 20, or it's whatever you want. And yes, I count on the Patreon because I've got subscribers on Patreon. I've got this one lady who's been there for over 3 years from when I first opened it up. And as a matter of fact, every so often she sends something on Google Pay on top of that. And I really appreciate it. I'll tell you, here, a lot of things are pending and I don't really want to talk about it, but a wireless mic would be really useful for a lot of things. Well, I found one that I checked the reviews. It's really good. It's really cheap. And she sent me some money on Google Pay just as a thank you. Well, I don't, I'm in a little better shape than I was because of this exchange rate. So here I got this money, and it was about enough to cover this wireless thing. So I ordered it up. I ordered it through Amazon. I don't know when I'm going to get it. They say I'll get it in May. I'll get it sometime. I don't know because of what's going on with this, but I'll get it sometime. And it came as a direct result of her, support of the channel, which in turn, when I get this, it'll make things better. I mean, you have to admit the quality of the sound and the video and a lot of the things that I do on this channel are light years better than they were 4 years ago when I began. And they just keep getting better and better and better. The sound used to be like not even watchable. Well, I want to go to the final step. The final step is to get this good microphone set up. Now, I do have this that was loaned or given, depending on if it works, this headset with a microphone. And I'd be using it today, except I was having some feedback problems and I didn't have time to figure it out. I can't. Once I open this program up live, I can't really do anything to make changes. But I'm hoping this will work. But I can't walk out on the street with a microphone, and if I have a camera, the sound's not always the best. But if I have wireless, I can have a lavalier mic through the wireless and have this camera and not have any issues and not have to walk around with some big old microphone. And in the USA you have a lot of people doing that, but when you're in another country, you don't want to walk around showing off a whole bunch of equipment. It's just idiocy. And so I'm cautious about that. No, it's not that I feel unsafe here, because that's not the case, but there are places in the United States I wouldn't do it either. And I would rather be cautious and never have a problem than assume that everything's okay, because I can't afford to replace this stuff. So I have to be really careful with it. Price controls on currency exchange. There's no price controls. It's whatever it is. Now, where you exchange the money is a whole different ballgame. Now, when I said world remit, they go by whatever the exchange rate is at that moment. So you can look it up on your phone, and then you can do world remit, and it's going to be basically the same. From the time you looked it up till then, it might have changed a few pesos, but nothing of significance. Here, if you use ATMs for your daily, which is what I do, I'll go to the ATM, once or twice a month, and just pull money out. And that depends on where you go. If you go to Bank Colombia and use their ATM, you're going to get hit with service charge and a lousy exchange rate. It's going to be terrible. The other day, when I got out and I got Davi Vienda to work the way people kept telling me, it actually worked. Uh, in Colpatria, I know how that is. I stopped at another bank and saw how would this work, and I canceled the transaction because the end result was, instead of the 4,038 pesos, I think it was, that the others were doing, it was 2,900 after all the fees and the exchange rate. It worked out to 2,900, which is ridiculous. You know, you're just giving away 1,000 pesos for every dollar. You know, 35 cents on the dollar. You're burning up. So you have to be careful. You have to know where to get your stuff. But it's easy to get dialed in. You know, people that come here, we sit down and talk. It's always a question. I tell them, this is what you're going to do. Do this from now on. Somebody's saying Western Union, worst way in the world. Never use Western Union here. Um, anyway, how much does Patreon take out for Patreon? Um, I think on $10, I think they take out 3 cents. I think that's what it is. Or maybe it. I don't remember. I think maybe it's 3.7%, something like that. The only way that I get exactly what somebody's trying to give me is through Google Pay. That's just a direct boom, goes right in the bank. There's no fees, no transactions for you, for me. It's just boom. Patreon takes some out. YouTube takes some out. Uh, Even GoFundMe, there's a fee on that service, and they're all pretty similar now. So many use Toyota trucks under 10,000 US dollars. Under 10,000 US dollars, yes. Trucks are a premium here. Four-wheel drives and trucks, you can buy a new little car for the price of a used, beat-up truck or four-wheel drive. That's, seriously, they're about double. But $10,000, yeah, that's no problem. $10,000 will get you so many things. The cars I'm looking at to buy, well, a new Chevy Spark GT, a new Chevy Spark GT, brand new, off the showroom, is 33 million pesos. If you get a SUV, then you're probably going to pay a low end, like a Chevy Geo type, if you know, a mini one. New, it's going to be like over 100 million. And if you get a well, I don't want to go through prices. You can look on Facebook Marketplace and just plug in Armenia, Colombia, or wherever, or you can go to olx.com, look it up there, or Mercado Libre, Libre, Mercado Libre .com, and you can look up you know, used cars and trucks, and you can find new ones on there. So it'll give you some idea. 4x4 workhouse, nothing cosmetically pleasing, 98 2004. You're probably going to pay as much as you would pay for that brand new Chevy Spark GT. Trucks and four-wheel drives just bring a premium here. It's just how it is. People see them as money makers. They are not basic transportation. You don't buy those unless you're going to use them commercially. And so the money that they put into that is money that's going to give them a return. And that thinking is why those prices are higher, I guess. The cars that I'm looking at are well under $2,000. Well under. But they're kind of at the bottom of the heap too. Toyota is not a big brand here. You see them now and then. It's not a big brand. Um, but you know, you'll say somebody say, "Well, get yourself a Toyota." Well, yeah, there aren't any. There, you know, it's like there aren't any Toyotas, and I'm not as I'm. I know cars. I've spent 40 years in the car business. When I did consulting, it was car related. My first job when I was 10 years old, I was pulling parts in a junkyard, and selling the parts, and I knew every year, make, and model on the road at the time. You know, cars are in my blood. I know cars. I've done body work. I've done mechanical work. I've been to pretty much every school you can think of, from management to turning wrenches. That's how I made so much money in consulting, because I'm an expert in that business and pretty much every facet of it. Um, and I know that people, you know, are partial to this brand or that brand. I am not a fan of Toyotas. I've owned a couple Toyotas. I'm not a fan of them. There's certain things about cars that people say, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's reality. But you know, having said that, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to find any Toyotas here in Armenia. It's not that they don't sell Toyotas; they're just not all that popular. What you're going to find is Renault or Renault. You're going to find those here. They were one of the first car companies to invest in Colombia. They're made here near Medellin. Uh, so that's a very popular brand. Hyundai, which has proven itself to be a bulletproof van, I'd say in the last decade. Taxis love Hyundais because they're just bulletproof. So those are very popular. Chevys are made here. So the Chevy Spark and a lot of these others, they're made in Colombia. And so those are popular brands because, you know, you might have a relative working in the Chevy plant, so you're going to go buy a Chevy. You know, so that's what you find mostly. Now, you know, you can find a BMW once in a while, you can find a Toyota now and then, but that's basically it. Um, so a couple questions. How's rental contracts? I search for land over a year. Do they do monthly contracts? Ridiculous credit check stuff. I'm not looking. I don't know. I know I talked to somebody just recently who rented a car and spent about $30 a day on it. I didn't ask any details on it. I don't know, but it said it was real simple. So yeah, you can rent a car, but you know, I guess it's one of those things where nowhere to go because you can. I hear in Medellin people are paying $100 a day for a rental car, so you know, it's like beware of people that speak English in services because you tend to, you know, like in a place like Medellin, that's also going to equate to very high cost. But yeah, rental cars are available, and you know here, pretty much everything is negotiable. So if you want to rent for a month, I'm sure you could work it out. Um, Good chat. I hope you're getting close to your car. I'd probably have a car now if we didn't have this lockdown. It's creating some issues of looking at a car, and I need a, you know, good half hour to. I know what to look for on a car, and I expect in this price range it's going to have repairs, and I'm prepared for that. But you know, it's got to be something worth repairing, and so I need time for that. And it's hard to put that together. Um, no, I meant renting a house, lodging. Um, Rental contracts here are mostly for a year, but you can do Airbnbs and you can do long term with them. So, you know, go with the Airbnb. Um, don't try to find something out in the country when you get here. You know, rent in a town and then spend your days going out to check things out. But, you know, we'll talk about that another time maybe. We can do a Skype call or something. Because there's a lot of boring details about that. But yeah, absolutely. Are most cars there stick or automatic? Most cars here are going to be a manual shift, and it's because the Andes Mountains can be pretty tough on a car, as you can imagine. And automatic transmissions, as they used to be, like Jeep Grand Cherokees, they were known for having automatics that were horrible. Um, they burn up under just highway driving. Put them in the Andes Mountains, tell me how long it's going to last. So automatic transmissions are just not the way to go. You know, when I grew up, only only pussies bought automatics. You know, it's like when I grew up. You know, I'm old, and you know, so back in the 50s, 60s, everybody drove stick shift for the most part. And a lot of people didn't accept automatics. That was for your wife, or it was for women, And you kind of have that here, but here it's for more practical reasons because these mountains were killing automatics, and so you just didn't buy one. Clutches, well, they're cheap and easy to replace, but automatics, it's definitely more problematic, and no pun intended. So, so people believe now automatic transmissions today are very often much more reliable. Although there's still some issues. Chrysler still has some issues, but I wouldn't hesitate with some vehicles if I found a good car and it was an automatic, depending on the car and the miles, it probably wouldn't bother me too much. But almost everything you see is going to be a stick shift, at least here in the Andes. Plus they tend to be cheaper cars, and everybody knows how to drive a stick, so why pay more and take the risk? I mean, I'm moving in with you. Please try to get a car with AC. Actually, most of them that I've looked at have functioning AC. It seems to be a thing here. I found one that actually, it was funny because it's got AC and power steering and power brakes and all that stuff, and roll up windows. That really surprised me because power windows and AC is a pretty common thing here. Would walking down Centenario, you mean Ave, from Calge, okay, to the north, probably be safe there in the evening, or Uber everywhere. Well, Uber is banned from Colombia, last I knew. Uber didn't exist in. You take a taxi. They're legal. They're registered. There's a number on the side of the car, so if anything happens, you have recourse. With an Uber, you didn't have any of that stuff. Uber was high risk. There were some scams in Medellin where you would Uber and they would take you somewhere to, stop the car and have criminals rob you, and stick with the law, and that's taxis. Now, would I walk? Depends on what time. I don't walk. I wouldn't walk in Rochester, New York, at 2 o'clock in the morning, downtown to an apartment or something. I wouldn't do that. Or I would. Not very likely to do that. I tend to, it's like I don't take those kinds of risk. I'm a risk taker, but not as stupid things like that. So here, if it's 8 o'clock at night, for example, would I walk down? Yeah, that probably wouldn't faze me because it's relatively safe here. But mostly, if you're at 2 o'clock in the morning, most of the people that are going to be up are going to be criminals. It's like in the morning, if I get up at 6 o'clock and I go out, the criminals are still sleeping. It's like they're not going to mess with you because they're still sleeping. But by 2 o'clock in the morning, they're up in their heyday. So, yeah, you can do it, and you're probably going to be fine. But why? Again, why? Yeah, you can take a taxi. But Armenia, I mean, it's a city, but it kind of reminds you of a sleepy town. I mean, it's got party places and all that. I'm not part of that scene. Somebody was telling me that There's like 80 restaurants, fancy, nicer restaurants in Armenia, and there's 120 in Pareda, and there's like 200 and something in Medellin. I think that's totally made up. I think it's a crock. But what he was saying is that these high-end clubs and discos and restaurants and things like that, the high end, there's not as much here in Armenia. Well, that's absolutely true. There's not as much, but they're still here and they exist. And I mentioned in another video, how much do you need? I mean, if you've got 20, 50, 80 places to go to, how many more do you need? You know, it's oh, I can go to 500 in Medellin. What are you going to? I mean, are you going to hit every single? No, you're going to find a few that are going to be your favorites, and you might hit different ones now and then, but mostly you're going to go to the ones that you like and you're comfortable in. So you don't need a bunch of them. Now your chances of going to a place here, like a club or a disco, and finding to be comfortable with friendly people are much higher here, excuse me, than in most places. It's hard to be a stranger in Armenia. All right, that's why they lock down Manizales so quick. It's too valuable economically to the country, all that coffee export. There's more coffee export here, actually, but I don't know. Manizales, you've got a federal or a national government, but each department and each town has variations. For example, here in Quindío, if I want to go to the store now under the current rules, I can go on Friday. If I'm in another location in Colombia, there's 2 days I can go. But I think part of that might weigh in, can I get those same groceries delivered to my apartment here? Yes, I can. So it's not even necessary to go, but there are differences here because local government can do their thing and the national government puts out more like guidelines. Okay, I don't know this conversation. I see at a steak dinner. There's a lot of good places in Armenia to eat. Texas Burger, they're awesome. There was a while that they kind of went to crap. I don't know what happened. I stopped going, and then somebody wanted to go, and so I went, and they were back to normal. So it was nice to see. But there's like if you want homemade Italian, there's a place handful of blocks within walking distance of where I live. Homemade pasta, a legitimate homemade sauce, northern Italy style. If you want a U.S. ribeye steak, you've got La Fogata. It's as good as you're gonna get pretty much anywhere in the U.S. You're gonna pay. It's a full decked out steak dinner with wine is gonna cost you. I know you're gonna laugh, but it's gonna cost you like $30. Well, for me, for here, and I live off this economy. That's, oh my God, that's like you might go for a birthday, to you laugh and say, well, I pay more than that here if I go to Texas Roadhouse or something. Well, that may be, but this is here, and so that's a lot of money where I can go and like somebody mentioned there, I just saw parts of it. Had a steak dinner here, Texas Burger steak dinner for $15 or less, and that's true. You can find a good steak dinner or you name it for $12 or less delivered to your house. Rotisserie chicken dinner, $6. So for $30, that's a lot. I can get a rotisserie whole chicken with salt potatoes and coleslaw and I don't really drink soda, but it comes with a soda, so I end up giving it away. But I can get all of that for the equivalent of $6-7. I once in a while I'll buy that, and for me it's good for several days. I can eat it for, lunches and dinners and stuff. Um, so $6-7 to eat lunch and dinner for a couple days. So when you look at that, and your budget is like that, then you look at $30. You can see what I'm trying to say. Beef is high now. Beef here, things are pretty much the same here. The farms are just doing their thing, and we don't have factory farms here really like that. So the U.S. ribeye, I don't know. I haven't been to a restaurant. They're not even open, and you can't order ribeye for home delivery. U.S. I can order Colombian beef, which is a mix. It's a mix from crap to awesome, and so you kind of need to know where you're going. I wanted to mention something on that video on the home delivery. I got some questions that were pretty bizarre. It's like, what do you do if the food isn't any good? What do you do anyway? These services, Domicilio, Uber Eats. Uber Eats exists. Uber doesn't. iFood. These companies that I did the video on, their delivery services. They have nothing. They're nothing to do with the restaurant. They don't work for the restaurant. They simply have the website to process the order. They send the order to the restaurant. The order confirms, prepares the food, has an agreed upon time. Their driver goes and picks it up and they bring it to you. They don't work for the restaurant at all. The restaurant subscribes to the service and pays a small fee on every one for the ability to use the service. And when I mentioned in that video, it's like 30% up. It's because some of these restaurants couldn't exist if they didn't have that. And so if they didn't have it before, you saw a lot of them signing on. And this Rappi, which I can't wait to do the video on this. It'll be within the next 2 weeks. It was a lifesaver for me, but they weren't in Armenia. You could find them in Bogota and Medellin, and I was jealous because I had people, bragging about how, I wasn't feeling good, but I needed money, and so they delivered money to me, and they have all kinds of services, and they're here now because of this virus. So that's the upside. All right, there was a question there. Are most of the eateries still in business there, depending on takeouts? Well, there is nothing but takeout. You can't go to a restaurant, and I saw quite a few shut down and some permanently. Like I mentioned, some video, Cravings, which I really like that restaurant a lot. And it was very sad for me to stand in line at the supermarket, look across the street, and see their sign taken down, just closed up. It's it's kind of heartbreaking, and you're seeing some other things now. Rob, the Juan's Perajilla that we went to and had a steak, and you love that steak. They're closed up, but I think they were closed prior to this. I think they closed up. I just never would see them open. But now there's actually a for rent sign. They're officially closed up. So you're seeing some places go out of business, but you also had a lot of places that were using home delivery services for quite a period of time, and those are as busy as they ever were. So there's winners and losers in things like this. Are they offended by tips? Well, tipping's not a thing here. It's not a matter of offense. Well, I'm not gonna cover the tips. I have talked tips to death, and all I seem to do is get two sides of the coin worked up. And I'm not trying to stir the pot here. You do whatever you want to do. If you're in Medellin and you're in Poblado, you're going to get tipped whether you want to or not, because that's what they've been taught. If you're here in Armenia, it's beginning to infect here, but culturally it's not a thing, and for many it's offensive. So, you know, do what you want to do. You don't have to take my word for it, but I'm telling you the truth. Yeah. The drivers, you mean the taxis? Yeah, you never tip. As a matter of fact, they take great pains and pride in handing you exact change. And I've mentioned this before. If you get out and you forget and you're in a hurry, which I've done, and they, hey, you know, they won't let you get away. Call you back and it'll count out the, yeah, it's, and you have some, you know, if you give it to them, they'll take it because they're being trained by people that don't understand the society, but um, you know, they're, well, like I said, I don't want to get into it. I've done videos on this before. I just personally, I think when you go somewhere, you know, that old saying, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. uh, that's a very, very old saying, and there's a reason for it. And so if you come to Armenia, you really should try to do what the Armenians do, as much as, you know, as much as possible. Okay. Okay. Uber Eats drivers. Uber Eats drivers, I believe there's a provision because it's a company out of the United States, and there's a provision where you can add on tips. I don't know anybody who does. Rappi, because it's mostly out of Bogota and Medellin, where they deal with a lot of foreigners who tip. There's a provision there where you can select 1,500, 3,000, 6,000. You can select a tip amount or zero. Um, Here in Armenia, tipping's not a thing here. Okay, we've gone, wow, we've gone very long today. Um, you guys were in a mood today, that's for sure. All right, another question. All right, I recall you said pay cash for deliveries, but isn't change a problem? Difficult? No. On the apps, let's say you order something up and it's 23,000 pesos, and all you have is a 50,000 peso. Part of that app is they say how much are you going to pay, and you put 50,000. So the driver comes prepared with that change for you. You don't have to say anything. It's not a surprise when he gets here. He already knows that. It's actually printed right out on the receipt. Um, and it's the same with all of these. So no, it's not a problem. And with a number of these apps, you can actually set up your credit card or debit card to pay that way. I just have a preference for a lot of reasons. Um, Everything is complicated, and one more thing I'm not going to go into now, but it's a cash society. It's much simpler to do cash than to go back and deal with issues or problems. To have a mistake on a charge, I actually had one recently that for a it was an unusual situation, but I ended up accidentally paying for it. It's all my bad. It wasn't even the app, and so they came and it was already paid for, except there was something that they didn't have. I forget what it was, but watermelon. They were out of watermelon, and so he came, but he didn't have a watermelon. But they charged me the full amount, and I've yet to get that credit back. Now, if I did cash, it wouldn't have been an issue. But they did the charge, and then there was a change, but they never performed it. See, it's those little things. That's not a lot. It was 9,000 pesos, so it's not a ton. But I don't have $3 to burn, and whenever you're not using cash, you open the door for weird things to happen. All right, so I'll get it back eventually, but damn, it's just something I'm going to have to be on top of, and I'm going to have to remind people, and you know, and if you're operating with a lot of credit card transactions, then how many do you want to keep on top of? You pay cash, it's done, it's over. Um, Okay. We'll do one more question. It seems like one of those nice things about Colombia, it hasn't been overwhelmed by Western culture yet. I don't know. Western culture is a good culture. I like Western culture. Again, and I don't mean Western as in cowboy hat, but Western culture. It's brought a lot to the world. There's a lot of good to it. Every culture has its plus and minuses. What I like about Colombia is it tends to pick the pluses and tends to avoid the minuses. Colombia is kind of a. This is my personal opinion. I think they're open to adopting, no problem. But they're discriminate. When I lived in Japan for 3 years, many of you know that. And in Japan, anything U.S., it's going to be popular. It's just like an automatic. You could be a good idea, bad idea, it doesn't matter. If it's U.S., it's there. Here in Colombia, if it looks like a good idea, they're all in. But if it looks like there's issues with it, if it looks like it might be personally insulting, if it might be bad for the environment, if it might not be a positive for society, then they're going to try to stay clear of that as much as possible. So it's like, seems like they're a little more discriminating. Lauren is obviously loving doing this. Well, I got something to do here, but it is going quite long. Did you convince them you were Michael Jackson? What? Huh? What? Woohoo! I don't know what you're. There's conversation here, and yeah, I don't have time to sit and read it all. It's funny because when these are over, I go back and I read, and sometimes there's things. Oh, I missed it. I didn't realize. And sometimes there's very popular in Japan. No, everybody thought I was, because I lived there sometime. I lived there in the 70s. I heard so many times, and you may not even know, but he was a popular actor in Japan. They thought I looked like Stacy Keach. I don't know, and maybe I don't have a hair lip thing. I don't know what it was. Who wants chat to last for one more hour? No, it's not going to last for one more hour. There's always next Sunday. But I'm glad you guys are bored enough to hang in there with me. Yeah, 40 years ago. Yeah, maybe. Well, I was there, like I said, in the 70s. But it hasn't changed a whole lot. I have a friend who went there for about a month last year, and we were comparing notes, and he was talking about this place he went to in Tokyo and this and that, and I knew everything he was talking about. It's like, yeah, there may be some upgrades and remodels and things like that, but it's are there independent thinkers in Colombia? That's an interesting question. Of course there are, but there's also sheep here. It's people are people. People are people most everywhere, unless they've been totally shaped by a different kind of society. And I'll say that for China. I've been to China, and there's a lot of collectivism and groupthink kind of stuff there that's been going on for so long that it's actually seemed to change the makeup of the people there. But in other countries I've been to, be it Vietnam or Philippines or in Europe or whatever, people seem to be pretty much the same. And I always thought that was the norm everywhere. I mean, I've been to Australia, I've been all over the place, and people are the people deep down. I will make the exception of China. There's a difference in those people that it's like so ingrained in them. But individual thinkers, how many people in the United States are individual thinkers? If you have a group of 10, there might be one. And I'd say it's the same here. You've got people here that think out of the box. They're of their own mind. And then you've got other people who just kind of go along with the fads or go along with the groups. It's called communism, yeah, but it's been hive-minded evil. You're exactly right. But it's the thing about China, it's been entrenched for so long that it actually has changed the people. Where you get a place like, well, even the Soviet Union, and it went on for a long time, but people were constantly, they had to be constantly repressed because the system didn't take that away from them. But in China, and you still have some, it's like I don't think we'll ever see another Tiananmen Square, but you still have that. But this group think, this collectivism is so ingrained that people that are going to step out of that are so few and far between. It surprised me because I never thought it would get to that point. I always thought that, people couldn't live without that. But apparently, apparently after a certain number of decades of repression, that can happen. I don't know. I don't know. China's another world. China is another world. Don't tell Hong Kong. Yeah, well, Hong Kong's a different place. Hong Kong, I still don't see it as China. I think most of the people there don't see it as China. Only China sees it as China. Uh, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Taiwan. That's a fascinating place. It's like the anti-China. That's individual thinking and freedoms and all that is just ingrained in them the same way collectivism across the straits there is ingrained in the Chinese. Okay, gotta stop. Throat's starting to hurt. I don't talk most of the week. Oh, I've got a birthday party too. My friend is here. I know you guys are going to freak out, but she's turning 19 today. And we have a cake, and we've got a thing, and so we're going to have a little birthday party. Her sister thought she had coronavirus, and she got cleared, and it's a complicated story. Turns out her sister didn't have coronavirus, but now I've got somebody here in the second room, and it's nice to have company, and she's been helping out quite a bit. But it's her birthday today, and so I had a cake delivered last night, and so we're gonna have a little birthday celebration. Raw garlic and oil of oregano, worst case. In other words, eat Italian. I did that last night, actually. I made goulash with garlic and oregano. Okay, so that's it. I will see you next Sunday. There will be a video out. It may be the Rappy video. If you have any intention of coming here to visit or moving here, I highly recommend, if there's ever a video you watch this Rappy video. You can sign up for it right where you are, as a matter of fact. Like I said, it was a lifesaver for me, and I'm going to explain why. So that's it. We're going to end it today. Thanks for hanging in there. I got some contributions. They went by kind of fast. I really appreciate whoever those were. I'll look back. I'll say who it was. Contributions are always appreciated, and it always goes to a good cause. Well, my favorite place is Colombia, at least in the Western Hemisphere. All right. Ciao.